By the time Mara Ivers arrived, the scene had already begun rewriting itself. Rain fell steadily across the shattered conservatory, blurring the edges of reality as if the world itself was trying to soften what had happened. Professor Jonah Vale lay beneath broken glass, his body arranged with a stillness that felt intentional, almost composed, as though death had been carefully placed rather than delivered. Mara had seen countless crime scenes before, but this one resisted her in ways she couldn't explain. The wound was precise, surgical even, yet the object beside him told a different story, heavy, blunt, incapable. And yet, it was there, waiting to be accepted as truth. When Jonah's photographs revealed something else entirely, something sharper, something that actually fit the wound, the ground beneath certainty shifted. Evidence no longer anchored reality. It questioned it. And in that moment, Mara understood that this case would not be solved by finding what happened, but by understanding why reality itself refused to stay consistent long enough to explain it all. A Quill's shop existed outside the rhythm of the city, a place where time had been fractured and preserved in fragments that refused to move forward. Each clock told a different ending, and together they created a silence that felt deliberate, almost protective. Mara sensed immediately that this was not just a place of knowledge, but of warning. Ola spoke of the Morrow Circle not as myth, but as inheritance, something passed down quietly, carefully, hidden beneath generations of influence and control. The idea of a weapon that changed form depending on who observed it was not presented as impossible, but inevitable, as if it had always been part of the city's foundation. And when the shop was violently disturbed, when the message appeared without sound or struggle, it became clear that the investigation had already crossed a line. This was no longer about uncovering the past. It was about surviving something that had been waiting for someone to notice it again. The second death confirmed what Mara had begun to fear: the pattern was not repeating, it was evolving. Niall Wren died surrounded by art dedicated to preservation, yet even there, nothing remained fixed. Every witness carried a different version of the weapon, each one believable, each one incomplete. The truth fractured across perspectives, reshaping itself into whatever form made sense in the moment. Mara tried to impose order, to separate fact from perception, but the harder she pushed, the more unstable everything became. And then came the reflection, a presence that existed just beyond direct observation, captured only in fragments, in angles no one had chosen to look at directly. It wasn't hiding. It didn't need to. Because it understood something fundamental: reality is not what is seen, it is what is agreed upon. Beneath black glass, buried beneath layers of deliberate forgetting, the truth waited with quiet patience. Elin's discovery wasn't just a connection, it was a revelation of intent. The city had not grown naturally. It had been reshaped, its past sealed away, its foundations altered to conceal something that could not be allowed to surface. The ledger did not read like a confession. It read like a record of controlled experimentation, of powerful individuals attempting to understand and manipulate perception itself. The weapon was never just an object, it was a phenomenon, something that responded to belief, to expectation, to the human need for explanation. And when Mara finally stood in that hidden chamber, holding something that appeared ordinary, she realized the most dangerous truth of all: the weapon didn't need to look extraordinary to be powerful. It only needed to make sense. Lucan Marr carried the weight of knowledge that was never meant to be inherited. His disappearance had not been escape, it had been containment. Because once someone understood the nature of the weapon, they became part of it, part of the system that allowed it to exist. Sabine Holt saw this not as a burden, but as responsibility. To her, the weapon was not chaos, it was structure, a force that maintained the fragile balance of a city built on carefully maintained illusions. And when Lucan reached for something that appeared harmless, something that aligned just enough with expectation to feel real, the consequence was immediate. No hesitation. No warning. Just finality. In that moment, Mara understood that the weapon did not act randomly. It acted precisely when belief and opportunity aligned. Sabine did not resist because she believed she was right. In her mind, every action she took preserved something greater than any individual life. The vault was not a prison for the weapon, it was a symbol of control, a place where the illusion of containment could be maintained. But as Mara confronted her, it became clear that control had never truly existed. The weapon shifted constantly, not physically, but conceptually, adapting to every assumption made about it. Every attempt to define it only strengthened its presence. And in the chaos of that confrontation, as it moved through impossible forms, one truth became undeniable: the weapon was not something that could be held. It was something that existed between perception and explanation, shaped entirely by those who tried to understand it. In the aftermath, the city did what it had always done: it simplified. It reduced the impossible into something manageable, something that could be written, filed, and accepted without unraveling everything beneath it. But Mara knew that the truth had not been resolved. It had only been reshaped. Standing alone in the conservatory, she faced the final version of the weapon, something so ordinary it almost felt absurd. A simple object. Familiar. Understandable. And that was the final deception. Because the weapon had never been about what it was. It was about what people needed it to be. It changed not to hide, but to be believed. And as Mara closed the case, she understood that this was not the end of the story. It was simply the moment where the world decided it had explained enough to move on.